Alright guys, so in today's video we are going to go over the power supply of a computer. Now there are three types of power supply that exist today. There's a modular, like a semi-modular and a non-modular power supply. What that means is basically a non-modular power supply means the cords and all the stuff that comes with it is soldered into the actual power supply. So what you see is what you get basically. Semi-modular is some of the wires are soldered in, but then it also offers, some other plugins. And then fully modular is you just get the power supply and the cords are separate, and you can kind of pick and choose what you want to plug in depending on, what your computer needs. The power supply doesn't actually supply any power. That actually comes from, like the wall, and, you get that from paying your bills from the electric company. But basically what the power supply is, it acts like a transformer that downgrades kind of like the power so it can be used by the computer. So it takes that AC current from the wall and then transforms it into DC current so the motherboard and all the other things could use it. Now, there are several things in the computer that rely on the power supply for power to function. So we're going to go over some of the connectors that can be found on the power supply so you guys have a better understanding of what those things are. All right, so the first connector we're going to look into is the ATX power supply connector, which basically gives power to the motherboard. Okay, so in the older versions of the motherboard, the 20-pin power supply was only used, but then later on, when things got more advanced and motherboards need more power, they added extra 4 pins. That's why it's kind of in two pieces right now. Now, the power supply kind of deals with three types of power: 12 volt, 5 volt, and 3.3 volt. And these wires kind of correspond, some of these wires correspond with the voltage. The yellow wire is 12 volt, red wire is 5 volt, and then the orange is 3.3 volt. The next connector is called the ATX 12V, and it's basically also an extra cord to supply extra power to the motherboard if needed. This is a SATA power cable, which powers the hard drive and any external memory that the computer may have. This next cable is called a PCIe power cable, and it is used to power higher-end graphics card that you may want to add to your computer. Now, another thing you have to keep in mind when picking a power supply for your computer is the wattage it outputs. Because your computer has different parts that require different amount of electricity, you kind of have to know a type of computer you have or a type of computer you're building before you go ahead and buy a power supply. You have to make sure you have the right amount of wattage. Another thing you kind of have to be aware of about the wattage is when you pick out a power supply from like a store or whatever, when you're building a PC or something, the wattage on the box is not exactly what your computer is gonna get, because the wattage in the box is really for ideal conditions, like ideal cooling, ideal, powers, supply, all that stuff. But more likely than not, you're not going to have ideal conditions, and um, you're going to get like a slightly less than what the box had told you. So, because of this problem, they've actually come up, like these companies have come up with a standard, right? So, these 80 plus little stickers, you might find them on the power supplies, and what they basically tell you is, you're gonna get at least 80% of the wattage in the box, and that's like a guarantee that they have. Now, the guarantee also comes with different levels where they could guarantee you like a higher percentage of the wattage being used. So that's that's another thing to kind of consider when thinking about power supplies. Now, in order to run your computer at optimum speeds, you need to keep it cool, and you have to be aware of how heat is kind of like moved through the system. And this is kind of where modular versus non-modular power supplies make a difference is when you have non-modular power supply, there's a lot more wires that you have to deal with, and that creates more heat in the system itself, versus a modular device where you might just have to pick and choose the wires you absolutely need, and then you don't have to have a bunch of random wires that you have to tuck somewhere else, creating more heat in the system. So that's just like another benefit for modular power supplies versus non-modular. And also, important thing to kind of keep aware of is the heat in your computer, and where you're storing your computer to let all this heat kind of out. This is just a small diagram to kind of illustrate that point. You kind of have to be aware of where the power supply sits in the system. Make sure it's facing the right way so it gets optimum airflow, and you get the most bang for your buck, the most wattage into your system. All right, guys. So that is it. That is the power supply. I hope you guys learned a little bit about the power supply. If I left something out, I am sorry. Um, if you guys have any questions or comments, let me know down below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.